What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today I am extremely excited because the lovely chaps over at the Transformers TCG HQ, which I'm still assuming is what it's called, have decided to let me reveal a really quite interesting and I think really quite good character card. It's a new Ironhide. And I am genuinely excited to show you this new Ironhide. It is Captain Ironhide. And there's quite a lot to like here. Starting off, it is a 9 cost, which, alright, is moderately expensive. Makes it the most expensive Ironhide we've had so far. But in terms of the stats, we're looking alright. For an 8 cost, we would expect 4-12-2, which is what we have in alt mode. But in bot mode, we have 5-12-2. So the stats are looking alright, maybe a tiny bit worse than we would expect for a 9 cost, but we're looking alright here. And certainly attack of 5, that ain't bad. We quite like this. But what we like more are the skills. The skills are what really makes this. So if we start off in bot mode, when this character attacks and has a weapon, you may swap that weapon with a blue weapon from your hand. Now the weapon attached to Ironhide doesn't need to be a blue, it can be any weapon at all, but the weapon with which you swap must be a blue weapon. So don't worry, I've gone and done my research into the blue weapons we might like. I've also gone and clarified a couple of ruling questions, which I was fairly sure about, but I realised that if I was the one doing the reveal, I should probably be 100% sure about the rulings, so I did go and have a cheeky ask. You swap the weapon before the attack. That means that if, for argument's sake, you've got a static laser of Ironhide, which gives you +3 attack, and you choose to swap it for Battering Ram, that card that I revealed yesterday, you get +2 attack, so you actually lose that 1 attack before you do the damage and you do all the calculations, so you will be hurt by that. Though similarly, if you swap a Battering Ram for an Energon Axe, as long as you're damaged, then you go from +2 to +3 and you get the buff before you go and do the damage. The other thing which I checked, which I thought was fairly important, if you attach in this way, you do get the when you attach abilities. So if we take Armed Hovercraft, for example, it is a blue weapon, so you could use it with this skill, and when you put it on a ranged character, and Ironhide is a ranged character, you do 1 damage to each enemy. So if you chose to use this skill to put an Armed Hovercraft on, you would do 1 damage to each of your opponent's characters, which I think is pretty gosh darn fun. And yes, if that were to KO the defending character, then the battle wouldn't happen. There would be no attack flips, there would be no defense flips. The battle would be stopped before it even began because there would be no defender. And I have checked these rulings with the lovely folks over at Transformers TCG HQ. You do swap before the attack. So when you're calculating the attack, you use the new weapon, not the old weapon. You do get any of the skills that activate when you attach a weapon, but if it's something like Armed Hovercraft and it KOs the defender, the battle never actually happens. There is no flipping for attack or defense. There is no battle. Cool. So the big question we need to ask ourselves with this then, what blue weapons do we have? Now, I'm not going to run you through every single one. For instance, Primary Laser, woo, it's a blue weapon, great. But it's also a vanilla +2 attack. It's not something I think we need to be especially concerned with. So I've already mentioned Armed Hovercraft. I mentioned it in a bunch of videos. I adore Armed Hovercraft. It only gives you +1 attack. But when you put it on a ranged character, you do 1 damage to each enemy. What I really like the idea of here is if you can get 2 in your hand, you attach 1 as your upgrade for the turn, doing 1 damage to all of your opponent's characters. You then, when you attack, swap it for the other Armed Hovercraft in your hand, and then you've actually done 2 damage to all of your opponent's characters, kind of like a one-sided photon bomb. That can be really quite devastating a combo. You'd have to have both in hand in order to pull it off, but then of course you could just swap them every time you attack, and that could be kind of fun. You have got Energon Axe, as I mentioned earlier, which gives you +3 attack. Remember that Energon Axe can only be attached to a damaged character, so you would have to wait until you were damaged. But I think this is one of the really cool things about this card. You've got Energon Axe in hand, you can't use it, because you're not damaged, so you keep it in hand, and you attach another upgrade somewhere else, but when you are damaged, you can swap whatever is on for Energon Axe. It's on there to give you that boost and the PS2 before you actually do the attack, and it doesn't take your upgrade for the turn. So I think one of the better uses for this is Energon Axe. Allows you to swap whatever you've got on there for an Energon Axe. And remember, if you just put Energon Axe on when you've got another weapon, you discard that weapon, and then you've got to try and get it out your scrap pile. Whereas if you swap it using the ability, then whatever was on there before goes back to your hand, ready to be attached to another character. I think Energon Axe combos beautifully with this, because you get to save it for when you're damaged, but you get a different weapon on there before, and you don't have to waste that different weapon. I think there's a lot to love here. It's one of my favourite uses for it. We've also got Noble's Blaster. Now, similarly, this is a really good one with this skill. You can only put it on Autobots, but you're an Autobot, so you're cool. And if you're attacking a Decepticon, you've got PS2. So basically, you really want Noble's Blaster on there when you're attacking a Decepticon. So maybe you've got a Static Laser of Ironhide on there, giving yourself +3 attack, life is good. Oh, now all of a sudden they've got a Decepticon down. I'm going to swap it for Noble's Blaster for this attack. And then you can always swap to a different one when you're not against a Decepticon. Although I do want to point out here, somewhat ironically, Static Laser of Ironhide does not have a blue icon. Yes, I know that's a little bit strange, but Ironhide's ability that allows it to swap its weapon when you attack will not allow you to swap for a Static Laser of Ironhide because it doesn't have a blue icon. It will allow you to swap a Static Laser of Ironhide for a weapon with a blue icon, because the weapon you swap from doesn't matter. But you got to swap to a blue icon and it doesn't have it. The other one I do need to mention here is Battering Ram, the weapon I was lucky enough to be able to reveal a few days ago. I really hope I've uploaded these in the right order, otherwise I've just revealed this not in the video, but I have faith I've not made that mistake. And it gives you +2 attack, but you get to flip the enemy character when you do damage, which can be really annoying. Either they're wasting flips, or they're in the wrong mode, or if you're against a combiner, you flip them into alt mode, and as we can see from Dinobot Enigma here, they've got to be in bot mode in order to actually form into Volcanicus. Ha! As I described it in my video, it is cornered, but as an extra handy bonus when you attack. Except it's actually better than cornered, because cornered will only swap bot to alt, whereas this flips them regardless of which mode they're in. And then we have a look at the alt mode skill, which I also like very much indeed. This cannot take non-attack damage from your opponent's cards. It is immune to any card that would do, as I like to phrase it, cheeky damage. So we've got things like Zap, Photon Bomb, Bolt of Lightning. These action cards that do direct damage, non-attack damage. Call it what you will, just don't try and do it against Captain Ironhide, because it ain't gonna work. Then of course we've got characters that have got these kind of skills. Nemesis Prime, when you flip it into alt mode, your opponent chooses one of their characters and does 2 damage to it. And I love the idea of this with Nemesis Prime because, and this was confirmed, because of course we've got Motor Master in Wave 2, which protects all of your other characters. So think of this like an inverse Motor Master. Motor Master protects everyone but itself. Ironhide only protects itself. And we got all the rulings for Motor Master. So if your opponent flips into Nemesis Prime, you can go, I nominate Ironhide to take the damage, and then Ironhide doesn't take the damage. Similarly, against Decepticon Shockwave, you should be taking 1 damage every time you discard a card from your hand, but you get to designate the character that takes the damage, so you just go, cool, yeah, I nominate Ironhide every time. And then Ironhide doesn't take any of the damage. We looked at Ultra Magnus the other day. I'll pop a link to that video in the description. And Ultra Magnus has a really fun but really kind of awkward skill, whereby when you're attacking in bot mode and you flip at least 2 orange, 2 blue, you do 1 damage to each character. That includes Major Ultra Magnus. It also includes all of your other characters. That's fine. Well, it's fine if there's Ironhide, because Ironhide doesn't take it. This is a phenomenal skill, ladies and gentlemen. It is a phenomenal skill. I think both the skills on Ironhide are great. I love being able to swap out your weapon so that when you're damaged, you have an Energon Axe. But you can play around with a different weapon until that happens. When you're against a Decepticon, you can go ahead and play with Noble's Blaster, but you don't have to swap into it until you're against a Decepticon. You can do this normally, but you have to waste an upgrade attachment because you've got to scrap it, whereas Ironhide lets you swap and keep the weapon to pop onto something else. And like I've said, in alt mode, you're immune to so many things. And the other thing to think here, the other thing to remember, it's not just the cards that are out now. Non-attack damage keeps getting printed in every wave, and it is going to keep being printed, and you are going to keep being immune to it. So you can just sit there in alt mode and you are immune. Although the sad thing is you do lose 1 attack in alt mode, which is a little bit sad. Then again, if your opponent's really going for the non-attack damage, you're immune. That's brilliant. Now you are a truck here, and that gives you access to Cargo Trailer. Now, Cargo Trailer is a utility, and you can put up to 3 in your utility slot, and each one gives you +1 attack for each Cargo Trailer on there. 1 Cargo Trailer, 1 times 1 is 1. 2 Cargo Trailers, 2 times 2 is 4. 3 Cargo Trailers, 3 times 3 is 9. Doesn't happen very often. Great when it does. I've already mentioned Battering Ram, of which I am a very big fan, and you've also got Team Up Tactics, which can heal 2 damage, if that's what you're into. But you're also a range character, and the good news is you are a range character regardless of which mode you're in, and that gives you access to the previously mentioned Armed Hovercraft, but you also get Rapid Ascent here. Now, this is an armor, and when you put it on a range character, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and scraps it. You're not going to be able to play around with the bot mode ability here, but it can still be fun. We've also got Cooling Vents, which is an armor as well. And when you put it on a ranged character, you repair 1 damage from it, which could be quite fun. And then you've got Marksmanship. The irony is that Marksmanship is one of the cards you protect against in alt mode. Here, if you've got a ranged character on the battlefield, you do 2 damage to an enemy in bot mode. That's kind of cool. And then, of course, I've got to mention Static Laser of Ironhide. Static Laser of Ironhide, I mean, on the one hand, it's really good. It gives you +3 attack, and you would have to do 2 damage when you attack, except you don't have to because you're Ironhide. But why does it have to have an orange icon? That's kind of annoying. I mean, Energon Axe has a blue icon and is better when you're damaged. And that is quite a big caveat. So I am a big fan of Ironhide. I think this is a really good card. I love both the skills. I like that it's a ranged character. And I like that we get to use Battering Ram. One of the downsides here is that it is pushing you towards a blue-focused deck, especially with the bot mode skill. But then again, if you're protecting from non-attack damage in alt mode, while playing a bunch of blue icons, and then maybe even doing cheeky damage with stuff like Armed Hovercraft and Marksmanship, both of which have blue icons, maybe that's the way to play this deck. Certainly my first thought here is blue deck, cheeky damage, go defensive. That sounds like fun, and I love the idea of protecting against cheeky damage while relying on it. But the fact of the matter is we've got 2 good skills here and decent stats, and there's a lot that can be done with this character. And I would like to know what you plan to do with this character, so please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! But please do remember the rule, ladies and gentlemen. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about games, like Transformers, but also a bunch of others. And before we finish here, I do need to give a huge shout out to the lovely folks over at Wizards of the Coast. I don't know if they're going to give me any spoilers in the future. Obviously, I hope they do. But I am very grateful they've given me the ones they have. I am delighted. I have really enjoyed them. So huge shout out to those lovely people. Thank you very much. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.